Imagine waking up in the morning knowing you'll never have to set an alarm clock again. No Monday meetings, no thoughts about working for another 40 years just to reach retirement. A life where you set the rhythm, not your boss's calendar. Sounds like a fantasy, right? That's exactly how most people see it, as if freedom only exists for lottery winners, heirs of billion-dollar fortunes, or Google founders. But the truth is, within the next 10 years, you can step out of the rat race completely and live without mandatory work, and you don't need luck, inheritance, or some miraculous startup idea to get there. The secret is in the system. Not in magic, not in genius, not in guessing the next unicorn. The reality is far more practical. There are tools that quietly work in the background, turning your money into employees who work for you. And if you set up this system correctly, there comes a moment when those employees start bringing in more income than your own labor. Now, take a look at the average life. People spend 40, even 50 years giving away their best days to work. And not because they're passionate about their profession or see it as a calling. Most people are simply convinced they have no choice. Society imposes a model: study to work to wait for retirement. And that retirement sits at the end of a never-ending tunnel where every day looks exactly like the last. And since the finish line feels so distant, people don't even try to look for alternatives. They just live on autopilot. That's how the trap is formed. Life turns into endless waiting for later instead of building now. Here's how it usually happens. A person finishes school, finds a job, gets their first paycheck. They start spending on rent, food, entertainment. Sometimes they manage to set a little aside for the future. If they're lucky, they try investing, opening a brokerage account, buying index funds or shares of companies they heard about in YouTube videos. But after a year or two, they look at their account and think, that's it? Just a couple thousand extra? That's all I have to show for all this effort? Growth feels microscopic. Progress nearly invisible. And this is where most people give up. They decide that early retirement isn't for me, that it's only for Silicon Valley millionaires or finance YouTubers. And so they go back to the old script, work until grey hairs, and hope the government will take care of them. The truth is, the reason results aren't visible at the start has nothing to do with the system being broken. The growth of your capital depends entirely on your own effort. What you put in is exactly what you get out. It's like pushing a snowball uphill. At first, it's tiny and heavy. Every inch forward demands energy, and progress is measured in centimeters. At this stage, your capital is still asleep. It's not working for you yet. It's just waiting until there's enough mass to gain momentum. And this is exactly when most people quit. They stop just before the bend in the road, the moment when the snowball starts rolling on its own. They walk away a step before the growth curve begins to tilt upward. Many people think that investing is something complicated, where you need super knowledge just to figure things out. In reality, there's one simple formula that can completely change the way you see money. It doesn't require advanced math and is available to everyone. This formula is called the Rule of 72. The essence is simple. Take the number 72 and divide it by the average annual return on your investments. The result will show how many years it will take for your capital to double. And that's it. No magic. For example, if your investments yield 10% annually, you divide 72 by 10 and get 7.2 years. That means every 7 years, your money doubles. And here's where the real magic begins. You put in $50,000 7 years later. It's already $100,000. Another 7 years, $200,000. Then $400,000. And after that, the acceleration becomes even stronger. At first, the growth seems tiny. You invest and you only get a few hundred on top. It's like watching paint dry. But the point is, the larger your capital, the stronger the acceleration effect. It's like gravity. You can throw a small pebble with your hand, but nothing can stop a massive boulder. It will keep rolling down, gaining speed. When you only have $10,000, a 10% return gives you just $1,000 a year. Seems like nothing, but when you already have $100,000, that's $10,000 out of thin air. Most people underestimate the power of time and overestimate the power of their own efforts in the short term. They want everything here and now, but financial breakthroughs are a marathon, not a sprint. Compounding is a game for the patient. The longer you stay in the game, the steeper the curve becomes. Every year you endure without quitting increases the strength of your future. The Rule of 72 isn't just arithmetic. It's your clock counting down to the moment when your money begins to feed you. And the sooner you start, the sooner that countdown begins. Imagine, today you have zero investments. Nothing, but you have a goal. Within 10 years to save and invest enough so that your capital already partially covers your expenses. Now, the reality. If you only save a small part of your income and invest lazily, you might reach your goal, but the path will be very long. For example, with an income of $4,000 a month and a typical savings rate of 10%, that's just $400 invested monthly. Even if those investments grow at 10% annually, in 10 years, you'll only have about $77,000. A good start, but far from living off passive income. Here's where the most important thing comes in. You can't just rely on, I'll save, and someday it will work out. You need to develop both sides of the game. Offense growing your income. Defense learning to keep as much as possible of what you earn. Imagine you increase your income to $10,000 a month, but continue to save at least the same 10%. That's already $1,000 invested every month. In 10 years, at 10% annual returns, your capital would grow to about $193,000. The difference from $77,000 is huge, and if on top of that you add income streams like rental properties, dividends, or other assets, then in 10 years you could already feel quite free from office drudgery. But there's a trick that almost nobody uses. When people's income starts growing, most immediately raise their consumption level. A new car, a bigger apartment, more trips, which means they cut off their own chance at early freedom. Now imagine another scenario. Your income grows by $500 a month. Instead of spending it on status toys, you put it into investments. Then your money workers start creating new workers. Every extra 100 turns into a brick that speeds up the construction of your future freedom. This is exactly what separates those who work 40 years without rest from those who leave the race in just 10-15 years. When people think about investing, most imagine something primitive. Well, buy some stocks or put money in a savings account. But that's like building a house only out of bricks, without wood, concrete, or a roof. Yes, the house might stand for a while, but it'll collapse in the first storm. It's the same with capital. If you rely on a single tool, you risk being caught at the worst possible moment. To retire early and stop depending on a paycheck, your portfolio needs to be balanced and effective. That doesn't mean it has to be super complex or demand daily management. On the contrary, the goal is for it to work like a self-adjusting machine, growing, generating income, and protecting itself from shocks. Picture your portfolio as a 3-story building. Each floor plays a role. Growth floor, the engine of your wealth. This is what pushes your capital forward faster than inflation. It includes index funds, US and global, the foundation for long-term stable growth. Dividend-paying stocks of large companies that share profits with shareholders. Growth stocks, companies with the potential to multiply in value over decades. This floor ensures your money doesn't sit idle, but beats inflation and compounds over time. Income floor, your personal cash flow. If the first floor is the engine, the second is the cash generator. It provides money you can spend without selling assets. It includes real estate investment trusts, dividend stocks, rental properties. If you're ready to be a landlord, these are the sources that let you cover living expenses regularly without eroding your capital. Protection floor, your cushion, and insurance. You can't put everything into stocks or real estate. To survive downturns or crises, you need shock absorbers, bonds, US treasuries or other reliable governments, high-yield savings accounts, a share of gold or commodities that behave differently from stocks. These assets won't deliver crazy growth, but they'll shield your portfolio when the storm blows down other floors. A crucial element, currency diversification. Most people don't even think about this, but if your assets are all in dollars, your entire fate is tied to a single economy. If something happens to it, your capital suffers. That's why keeping a small percentage in foreign markets or strong currencies works like insurance against surprises. Some say, why bother with bonds or defensive assets? Let everything stay in stocks. They grow faster. Sure, sometimes you win that way, but the price of being wrong is too high. Imagine the market crashes, you urgently need money, and all your assets are down 30%. To get cash for living expenses, you're forced to sell right at the bottom. That's the biggest threat to early retirement. Not a bad year in the market, but being forced to sell too soon. The right portfolio is designed to grow, pay you income, and protect itself at the same time. It won't necessarily be the top performer in any single year, but it will keep you in the game for decades. Picture your money as a farm. There are fruit trees, growth stocks. They grow slowly, but years later, they give you large harvests. There's the vegetable garden, dividend stocks, rentals. It provides steady produce every season. And there's the fence. And the well bonds, gold, cash. They don't feed you directly, but without them, the farm dies during the first drought or invasion. If you have all these elements, your farm lasts for decades and sustains you. If one is missing, the first crisis wipes out all your work. How to beat inflation and not eat away your future. One of the most dangerous illusions in personal finance sounds like this. I'll build up capital, invest it, and then I can just relax. It will work on its own. Seems logical. You've built a nest, and now it will keep you warm for life. But that's a trap. Why? Because there's a silent enemy, inflation. It slowly erodes your purchasing power. What costs $100 today might cost $103 tomorrow, and $140 10 years from now. If your capital just sits still without growing, its strength gradually disappears. Many beginners think, I'll save up $1 million, put it into dividends, and live peacefully. But if you stop adding new contributions and ignore inflation, your perpetual motion machine will start to stall. Imagine this. Today you invest $1,000 a month. Each year, inflation rises by 3%. That means that in a year, today's $1,000 is already equivalent to $1,030. If you keep investing the same $1,000, you're actually putting away less in real terms than you need to maintain your future lifestyle. That's why you must adjust your contributions each year for rising prices. It's not greed or ambition, it's simply the cost of of making sure your future standard of living doesn't fall. Often, people who reach a certain level of passive income begin treating it like a paycheck. Well, $6,000 a month comes in, so I can spend it all. The problem is, if you spend all your passive income and even dip into capital, the countdown to zero begins. Capital is like a forest. You can live off the fruits, berries, and branches, but you can't cut down the trees, because if you chop them for firewood today, in 10-20 years, the forest will be gone. To make your capital not just survive but grow, your strategy needs two things: continuous contributions and reinvestment. Here's how it works. Increase your annual contributions at least by the inflation rate. Even when you reach passive income, don't spend it all. Reinvest 10 to 20% so capital keeps compounding. That way, you're building not just a safety cushion, but a self-sustaining system that grows stronger each year. Here's the paradox. Even small increases in contributions change the outcome dramatically. For example, you invest $1,000 a month at 10% annual returns for 20 years. Result, about $760,000. But if you raise contributions by just 3% each year, $1,000 to $1,000 and $30 to $1,060, etc., after the same 20 years, you'll have over $1 million. The difference is massive, but the effort is minimal. You barely feel it, since income usually grows faster than expenses anyway. Inflation is often demonized. It destroys savings. But in reality, it's not the enemy, it's just a natural part of the economy. The real enemy is being unprepared. If you build the habit of increasing contributions into your strategy, inflation stops being a threat. The key is this: investing shouldn't be a temporary sacrifice, but a lifestyle like brushing your teeth or going to the gym. Take two people. Both start investing at 30. The first puts $1,000 a month for 20 years and then stops living only off returns. The second does the same, but raises contributions 3% each year and, even in retirement mode, reinvests 15% of income. After 20 years, the first one's capital slows down, and by 60, inflation is eating away at his assets. The second's capital keeps growing, and his passive income not only maintains, but increases its purchasing power. That's the difference. The first lives on a ticking clock counting down to zero. The second builds a system that runs like a perpetual motion machine. Financial freedom is not a myth or a privilege of the few. It's a system anyone can build. At first, the path seems slow and meaningless, but this is the moment where your fate is decided. Will you keep going or give up? Over time, your capital begins to work on its own. Money turns into your employees, and time only amplifies this effect. A balanced portfolio, protection against crises, and accounting for inflation make the system resilient. The key is patience and discipline. Freedom is closer than it seems at first glance.